Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver the episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It is a beautiful day here in suburban Chicago. It is late February still, but it feels like mid-March. The sun is out. The air is crisp, but not cold. I have a winter cap on, but the sun is shining. Whoa, what a beautiful day. What a beautiful day. I'm glad to be out walking, glad to be out talking, glad to be out telling you about board games. Continuing my process of trying to catch up with all the games I played in January, but didn't make podcasts about because I wasn't making podcasts. I continue, although these games are, we're still in January. That's right, it's time for another Shooting from the Hip triple shot. So Shooting from the Hip triple shot is, as you all know, a quick review episode in which I talk about 3 games that I've played recently for the first time, talk about what I thought of them, and whether I'll be interested in playing them again. It is sort of a review segment, but it's a quick review segment, and most importantly, it is not a thorough review segment. These are games I've played once, maybe twice, so listen to my opinion with a big grain of salt in your hand. I don't know how that'll help you balance the opinion. Well, but there it is. With a grain of salt, where does that phrase come from? What does it mean? Like, narratively, I don't know what take it with a grain of salt means. What a weird thing to think about. It's not something I've thought of. So the first game I want to talk about is one I played a while ago, but this was a impulse purchase from Goodwill. It looked, I'm always interested in trying old games, even if they're not something I'm going to hold on to. But this game I also thought might make a really interesting, or might make a useful component piece because of the way the game was designed. This is a game called Wordsearch. Now in Wordsearch, you randomly spread out this big array of these discs, which are blank on one side and have letters on the other. So you flip them all face down, spread them around, and then flip them back up and examine what we get on the other side. These would be letters, and it ends up looking like a big word search. And then what you do on your turn is you find words, and you get points based on how the words move around or something. But it is basically like if you tried to make a word search out of a board game. The key part, we're having a little bit of 2 dogs growling at each other. It is like as if you made a word search into a board game. Not super compelling, I will say. Amusing, but ultimately, it is like doing a word search as a board game. So if you think that sounds super fun, maybe this would be for you. Ultimately, it wasn't that fun for us. We played it once. I was like, okay, I've seen what it is. I don't need to play it again. And then I disassembled the game for parts. I put the box in my boxes box, and I took all the little circular discs with letters on them and put them in a bag and put them in my parts bin. And I put the board in my parts bin to use as a board for future game design. So basically, I decided word search was more useful to me as parts. Its parts are more than its whole, by which I mean to say I took it apart. So word search is fine. It was not great. There wasn't a lot to compel me there. I mean, if you were going to play a word game, there's a bunch of other better word games, Paperback or Scrabble or, pretty much any other word game I think would be better than word search. So next up was Night of the Ninja. Night of the Ninja is a small box card game that I played with some friends at Toggle Gaming. Really good, surprisingly good. In the last episode I did mention it as a top game from 2022. I played it right before I did that episode, and that gave me a chance to consider it in the context of 2022 games. How you play Night of the Ninja, you get a bunch of cards and you draw one and you pick a card and pass cards. It's a drafting game, and what you're doing is you're drafting a clan of ninjas. Now these ninjas serve as your actions in the game, and you're going to get a few of them. I think you get 2 or 3 ultimately. And basically what you're trying to do is you are doing a little bit of manipulation of the board, sort of like the game Coup, if you're familiar with that one. But ultimately it's about kind of setting yourself up to do well in the end game scoring. There are a couple different competing clans, and some of the cards score if your clan is left alive, or if you score for other cards that are there. And there are some cards that allow you to assassinate, but sometimes you end up assassinating people who are in your clan, and then you end up helping someone else win, etc., etc. It's pretty simple, but really effective in terms of the interaction of the different characters, the ease of play. It's like a 10-minute game, so really satisfying. You can play a couple rounds and have it be a nice filler. So yeah, overall, Night of the Ninja, really solid experience, very fun. Well worth playing if you get a chance. I liked it a lot. As I mentioned before, I also do like to, when I get a chance, talk about a dusty game. A dusty game is one that has not been played for a year or more. This is a game I've played before, but it's been more than a year. In this case, it was the game Superfight. This was a very dusty game. I hadn't played Superfight in a very long time, but my college board game club, we were playing some of the lighter party games, and Superfight ended up being one of the games that we played. It's a good time. It is a persuasion game where you draw some cards and you get a sort of ludicrous combination of superhero characters and superpowers, and then you're supposed to explain why your superhero would win in a fight against another superhero. It's silly, it's funny. It's a judgment game, which means it's got limited utility, I think. Those are fun for a little while, but ultimately they get kind of samey. But we played, I think, 2 rounds around the table, maybe 3 rounds around the table, and we had a good time doing it. Definitely, I can recommend Superfight as a game you might enjoy if you like this sort of thing. And I encourage you to think about checking it out if you get the chance. That's Superfight. And then finally, it had been 5 years since I played that game. Wow. And then finally, I got a chance to play Zombicide: Night of the Living Dead. Now, Night of the Living Dead, the Zombicide is a venerable zombie fighting franchise. It's a franchise of zombie board games. And Night of the Living Dead is, of course, the premier zombie movie. And the Night of the Living Dead Zombicide is a themed edition of Zombicide focused on the story of Night of the Living Dead. In the game, you have several scenarios, and you are acting out the plot of the movie. You play the group of survivors from the movie hiding in a house surrounded by zombies trying not to get eaten. And in fact, you are doing your best to help them survive. The game has sort of movie mode and then Zombicide mode. In the movie mode, the characters function more like the characters in the movie. In Zombicide mode, you play more like the original Zombicide game. If you've played Zombicide before, this game works very much like that one. Every player's got a little dashboard. The way that you interact with the zombies is the same. The win conditions are pretty much the same. When you're playing the scenarios, they give you slightly different things to do and slightly different setups, so you can sort of act out the scenes in the movie. One of the mechanisms I think is really neat is you get 2 models for each character. You get the regular character, and then you get the Zombicide mode character. And the Zombicide mode character has a more aggressive stance, and they have a cool weapon, whereas the regular mode, they look basically like the person from the movie. And so one of the elements is when you're playing, you can take a couple actions in order to upgrade your character to get them into Zombicide mode, basically get them enough experience to be able to really kick some butt against the zombies. But the clever twist is if one of the emotional zombies comes onto the board, either the little girl, Judy, or the brother, Steven, if one of them comes onto the board, then all the characters switch back to regular because they're so emotionally distraught by having this family member show up and cause trouble. So I think that's a really interesting twist to the game. We had a good time playing it, and I'm looking forward to playing it again at some point. I think it would be fun to run through the different scenarios. At worst, I'll bring it to my zombie class each year as the Friday night game instead of Last Night on Earth, which was fine, but Zombicide, I think, will take the place. I also have been in line with the goal of doing more painting this year. I decided to take the opportunity to paint all the miniatures in the Zombicide Night of the Living Dead set. I have now painted all of the zombies with the exception of the two zombies that are part of the like the emotional zombies or whatever. All the other ones are painted now, and I think they look pretty good. I used a strategy that I'd seen online of painting them in kind of black and white. I used all grayscale colors, although there's some that hint a little blue and some that hint a little brown, so it's not strictly grayscale. There are also two zombie characters that are bashers. They carry weapons. One has a brick and one has a table leg. And I painted the brick and the table leg brown, like a kind of leathery brown. And then I painted, each zombie is sort of black and white and then has touches of red on them because they're, killing people. When I haven't painted the individual the characters yet. When I paint those, I'm going to paint them with color. Even though the movie's in black and white, I think having the heroes be in color is a nice touch and will help distinguish them from the other characters on the board, but will also help make them stand out a little bit more. So that is Night of the Living Dead, a Zombicide game. And that brings me to the end of my episode. What new games have you been trying lately, friends? Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and share your experiences with me. I'd love to know what you've been playing, what games you've been trying, and what games you've been living and what games you've been dying. I don't know why I thought that should rhyme, but there it is. Well, head over there and let me know what you've been playing. If you'd like to reach out directly, you can send me a geek mail message at wombat929. You can send me an email, brendan@rattleboxgames.com, although I will admit I have been kind of neglecting that address. So if you emailed me in the last couple of weeks, I probably haven't seen it. I'll try to get back to that now that I've put my voice to audio recording saying I would. If you want to play a game with me, head over to Board Game Arena or to Boîte à Jeux or to Yukata and look up the username Wombat929. That's my username in all three places, and I'd love to play a game with you. So, thanks for joining me on my walk today as the jet flies overhead. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.